The Texans don't plan on showing the Dolphins any Southern hospitality on Sunday. We are joined by Miami Herald columnist Omar Kelly to discuss Sunday's game.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? You're tuned to the Locked On Texans podcast. I'm your host, Big Sarge, credential media member, and your Texans insider. On today, we are joined by an OG, triple OG in the sports media world. He has been
crazy.
In the game.
It's crazy to know I used to be the young boy. Now I'm the OG. It's crazy.
OG, triple OG. He's been in the game for 25 plus years. He's a columnist for the Miami Herald. We'd like to welcome to the Locked On Texans podcast, Mr. Omar Kelly. But first, we got to give a shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer on the show, which is part of the Locked On Network Locked On Network, your team every day. All right, on today's show, playoff mindset for the Dolphins. They think they're just going to come up in NRG and get a win and push their playoff hopes. Miami's game plan for CJ Stroud. That's going to be interesting. And safety first versus the Dolphins. It's going to be key for the Houston Texans. But first, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Mr. Omar Kelly, before we even get started on this show, right? Before we even get started, hey, man, how does Nike make your feet hurt?
Listen, bro, I got plantar fasciitis. I'm old now, so I got old man feet. They hurt all the time.
Yeah.
And so about 5 years ago, I started wearing Adidas Boosts. Then it became Yeezys because Yeezys have the Adidas Boost technology. And the Boost technology has that started 7 years ago. That started probably about 10 years ago because I discovered Boost and had to get rid of all my Nike shoes. Now, I kept just a little bit. I kept just the spare select, the cements, the 11s, I kept the stuff that I love. But then they started coming out with these Travis Scotts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, those are a little fire right there. So I bought me a pair of Travis Scotts. I went on a road trip to Green Bay and I wore some Jordan 1s, the high tops, and had them on for 3 days. Then came back some Travis Scotts, then wore some other Nikes. So I wore Nikes for a good about 10 days.
Yeah.
Man, my feet are on fire. Hey,
I definitely understand that, man. Being an old man myself, that's why I have to get. I'm at the point where I'm getting the old man running shoes now. Like I still got a bunch of
which old man running shoes you got? You got the Hoka?
No. Invincible Run 3s. That's what I got from Nike. I can't wear the Hokas.
You talking about Nike? I don't trust Nike no more. Nike has lost all my trust.
Let me tell you something, man. Former Houston Astros manager Dusty Baker used to be here. When I seen him wearing Hokas, I said, I'll never wear a pair of those. That's almost an 80-year-old man wearing those shoes. I'm not going to do it.
The people who wear Hokas, they swear by Hokas.
Exactly.
And I think I want a pair, but they gotta make a better design. They're just hideous looking. But I feel like I should try something else, but I know my feet will never be placed in Nikes again for longer than 4 hours.
Speaking of new design, the Miami Dolphins in the last 5 games, they're 4-1. They're a sneaky 4-1. I don't think anybody's paying attention to them. Not only are they 4-1, their next 4 games is against the Texans, the 49ers, the Browns, and the Jets. They're currently 9th in the standings. And I think at 6 and 7, only the Ravens, Chargers, and Broncos are over them at 8 and 5, including the Houston Texans, and the Colts are 6 and 7 above them. Are the Miami Dolphins trying to come into NRG with playoff aspirations, get a win, and to keep their playoff hopes alive?
Absolutely. They know that they are in a situation where they can't lose a game the rest of the year. They want to achieve their season's goal, which is to make it to the postseason. Now, I've always looked at this Houston Texans game, even before we began the season, before Tua's injury, and circle that game because I think that is going to be the game that kind of defines the trajectory of the season and trajectory of where this regime goes, because they're in year 6 of a rebuild. And really, in my opinion, the foundation of this team is not very solid. Trenches are a mess on both sides of the ball. Secondary needs to be rebuilt. Run game is averaging less than 3 yards per carry for the last 5 weeks. But if they can go into Houston, a winning team, in a hostile environment, and pull out a victory like they did with the Rams, I think that they have a good shot of getting to 10 wins, which is what I think it'll take to get to that final playoff wild card spot. So yes, Houston is on their to-do list. I'm not sure which team is more talented, but I think that based on what we've seen so far this season, I know who's the more talented quarterback. I know who has the better wide receiving core. But I think Houston might be a better all-around team.
So you think that you said that you know who has the better quarterback and the better wide receiver core. You speaking of Tua Tagovailoa and the track team that he has over there?
Absolutely. I was thoroughly impressed. DJ told me, because I was like, wait a minute. I looked at the numbers last year with CJ Stroud, and I was just like, man, there's no way this young cat is playing that good. Teams maybe just struggled to adjust to him or, got a lucky game. And DJ was like, look at the film. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'm gonna look at the film. And I looked at the film and I was like, damn, this dude is balling.
Yeah.
However, I think his game has regressed. And I think defense have caught up to what he's doing and how his style and taking his primaries away. And these are things that all young quarterbacks go through. Yeah. Look at Tua Tagovailoa. His game has completely evolved from where it was 2 years ago to where it is now because of how teams are playing him. Cloud in the middle of the field, taking and putting 2 safeties over the top of the defense, taking away the deep ball. So he's had to vary how he's played. And now look at me, completing 75% of completions. I got to look this up, but if he's on this trajectory and it's been pretty consistent, that might be an all-time high in terms of completion percentage for an NFL quarterback. But getting back to CJ Stroud, I think his game has to continue to evolve, and I don't think it has. And obviously, I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan, and losing him isn't going to help because you need that primary weapon. But he's got weapons. He's got Nico Collins. He probably gets to the season with the best wide receiver core in the NFL. And now I get it. Your offensive line is not playing well, and at times I've seen it over my career that has held a quarterback back. I could argue to you that Tua might have a worse interior offensive line than CJ Stroud, and it doesn't make a difference because he gets the ball out of his hand so quickly. Maybe CJ has to evolve his game to be more of a quick passer as opposed to always looking for the big play.
And I'm going to get into CJ in just a second because I want to hear what the defensive plan is going to be for him. But sticking to these playoff aspirations that they have, and coming into NRG, you also playing against the Houston Texans team that got their backs against the wall. Everybody knew what the goals and the aspirations was for the Houston Texans. Of course, every team wants to make it to the Super Bowl, but every team can't make it to the Super Bowl. But this is the first time the Houston Texans have had talent on both sides of the ball. They haven't been playing the way that they needed to play. It seems like they have been playing down to their competition. And so they know coming out of this bye week, they played a lot of football. Like, they're one of 2 teams, I think maybe them in Chicago. And I think that they've been playing. They were the last team to play as long as they've been playing, starting OTAs as soon as they did because they had that Hall of Fame game added to them. So coming into the bye week, week 14, they needed that. They needed that rest in order to be refreshed coming out of that. So going up against a Miami, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really just call them Miami Dolphins. I call them like the Miami Dolphin track team because of the wide receivers, the speed and wide receivers that you all have, plus the running back that you have. And so when you're coming into NRG, with keeping your playoff hopes alive, what is the one thing that could stop the Miami Dolphins from winning this game on Sunday?
I think if they can't establish the run game, and they have struggled for 5 weeks, this is not a fluke. Like, we are on red alert. This run game has been choked out, and it's primarily because of the play of the interior line. They're probably not going to have Teron Armstead at right tackle. They're going to start Houston's own Patrick Paul. If they cannot run the ball effectively, and I'm not saying they got to average 5 yards a carry, just give me 3.5 per attempt. They're not even at that. If they cannot run the ball effectively, they're not going to win against Houston. And I think Houston is probably the last team that might be able to take them down. They're a good team that hasn't played their best ball yet. Obviously, they had a month without Tua. When Tua came back, they played games without Zach Sealer and some of their star defenders. Now they're battling a couple of injuries, and they really don't have any pass rushing. Second fewest sacks in the NFL behind the Atlanta Falcons. But they play good team defense. Two things that can hurt them against the Houston Texans if they continue to have tackling issues. They've had tackling issues for the last 2 weeks. And if they cannot run the ball, those two are really going to be key factors to me in terms of whether or not they can pull out a victory on the road.
Yeah, and I know that they're coming. Like I said, they're coming in, and they're a hungry team. Like I said, 4-1 in their last 5 games. Had to go to overtime to beat the New York Jets, a team that the Houston Texans lost to earlier this season. So I know that they're really, really, have momentum. I know they're a hot team. I know that they're looking to take down the Houston Texans, but there's only one quarterback in the AFC that shines when the pressure is on. There's only one quarterback that says pressure is a privilege, and that's Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. We'll talk about him when we come back from the break. Today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. If you are a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Welcome back, Battle Red Nation, to the Locked On Texans podcast. I'm joined by Miami Herald's columnist, Triple OG, Omar Kelly. Look, in the last segment, we talked about the playoff mindset that the Miami Dolphins are going to have coming in the NRG. What can they do to stop CJ Stroud? Now, before we get started, this has been a down year for CJ. The numbers are kind of what we thought that they would be, especially for a sophomore. Slump is what they're calling it. And so his numbers aren't bad. We just seen a lot of things that hasn't transpired on the field like they did his rookie year. And we can contribute that to a lot of the interior offensive line play. There's a lot of times that CJ has been under duress. He may have seen ghosts. He may have heard footsteps, and it's causing him to come up short. And nobody's taking this responsibility on the failure of the Houston Texans offense, especially in the second half, where they seem to, just completely forget about how to play offense. In the second half, these scoring droughts that they have, nobody is taking it harder than CJ Stroud. But I believe that coming out of this bye week, knowing CJ like I do, he's one of those players. And like I said earlier, he said pressure is a privilege. He knows what's at stake. He knows that the Houston Texans still have an opportunity to move up, as far as the seeding is concerned. Right now, they're currently in fourth. If some things go their way, if they can win out, maybe they could jump up to maybe 2, maybe. And so they can't drop this game to the Miami Dolphins. But what is the Miami Dolphins game plan for CJ Stroud?
I think it's to disguise the looks that you give him. He's still a young quarterback. He can still see phantom, blitzes. Obviously, the Dolphins are struggling from a pressure standpoint. Now there's a possibility they can get Bradley Chubb back from the ACL injury he suffered in last December. He's been activated. This is his second week of practicing, so he might get unleashed and be able to play. But even if he plays, I'm not talking about 40 snaps. I'm probably looking at more like a third down pass rushing situation for him. But the Dolphins, a lot of that is probably going to be simulated pressure from blitzes from the cornerbacks and from the safeties and from the linebackers. But I think that this game really comes on the shoulders of the secondary, primarily the cornerbacks. Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, Kader Kohu, those three cornerbacks. I remember when we had the joint practice with Houston probably 2 years ago, I was thoroughly impressed with the caliber of wide receivers that they had. And I think the year of experience, they got mature, they balled, they got a lot more confidence. I think that this might be one of the better receiving units that the Dolphins have faced, and there are no weaknesses in that Houston receiving unit. So I think it's going to be on the cornerbacks and on the safeties, which have not played well at all this season for the Miami Dolphins. If they're going to pull out a victory, they've got to force some turnovers. They got to get pressure on CJ Stroud.
Omar, I got an opportunity to talk about this on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Texans podcast. But now that I have a subject matter expert who has watched every snap that cornerback Jalen Ramsey has taken since he has come to the Miami Dolphins. I mean, you got a chance to watch him in OTAs. You got a chance to watch him training camp. You've watched every snap that he's played since he's been there. How big of a matchup is this between him and Nico Collins? And do you see Jalen traveling with him wherever he is on the field?
Last week he traveled with Garrett Wilson. I think Nico Collins is probably a comparable wide receiver, even though Devontae Adams was on the other side. He traveled with Garrett Wilson, and they got him. They got him, and they tore him up, tore the Dolphins secondary up. I think that there's a possibility he might travel, but then when you travel, you put the pressure on everybody else, and really, I would have to look at whoever gets the highest percentage volume of passes from CJ Stroud, whatever that percentage is. I think if it's bigger than 45%, I think he travels. But if they spread the ball around, I think they'd rather stay in their base defense and maybe have him travel on third down situations. But it's an interesting case study because sometimes he travels, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he plays in the nickel. It really comes down to a very game-specific game plan in order how they feel they can best maximize their best player. And without a doubt, he's been the top player on the team this year.
And the reason why I asked about Jalen Ramsey versus Nico Collins and why I have Miami's game plan for CJ Stroud, because I'm just going to be honest with you, man. I got a chance because, I did my scouting, last week with the Houston Texans being on the bye week. And I just couldn't believe that I was watching Aaron Rodgers, pull out some of the things that he pulled out from his Green Bay Packers days. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, is this the same Aaron Rodgers? And they gave up 339 yards passing and one touchdown.
He was balling. Back shoulder. I think there's probably 5 quarterbacks in the league that could throw the back shoulder throw.
Yeah.
Now, they all say they have it, but how many really use it?
Yeah.
He could hit that back shoulder throw at any point, and that is some talent right there. He was able to evade pass rushing pressure and escape some sacks. CJ has that ability as well. So it'll be interesting. I think, and with Aaron Rodgers, and I know this is not a Jets show, but with Aaron Rodgers, there's no defense you could show him that he hasn't seen and hasn't figured out, and know the skies. He'll call those age veterans. They'll call out the play before the defense even shows you a look. CJ Stroud isn't there. He's not at that level.
Yeah.
And I think what Anthony Weaver, the defensive coordinator, has to do is he's got to do a better. And I think y'all familiar with Anthony Weaver.
Yeah.
I thought he sucked at his job, huh?
They were going through a rebuild.
Yeah. They were going through a rebuild, and
They were going through a
I
rebuild.
think that was the COVID year. I should probably write something on Anthony Weaver this week because he was really scarred by that experience. It was COVID year.
Great guy too. He's a great guy.
Great guy. He's going to be a head coach. He's absolutely going to be a head coach soon. Man, it gotta show CJ Stroud looks. Got to make him see ghosts, and that's the way that you got to make him check down as opposed to be looking down the field, and that's the way that you can really have a game plan that benefits you, because CJ arguably is top 5 quarterback that they're going to face this season.
Yeah, and so that's why I brought up Aaron Rodgers, because I believe that CJ is on that trajectory, of being Aaron Rodgers, minus the narcissistic tendencies and the ayahuasca and CJ is a devout Christian, so he looks for the light. He doesn't want to be in the dark.
Ayahuasca's natural. I'm just saying.
And so I just believe that CJ.
By the way.
I believe CJ can do. I believe CJ can do some of those things that Aaron Rodgers, that a young Aaron Rodgers can do, and it's him being in the league this amount of years that he's been, less than 2 years, and him still being able to play at the level that he's playing at, and now, like I said, he's coming off this bye week and had a lot of time to reflect, and so. Omar, I want to thank you for joining the show today, man. Tell the people where they can find you at and where they can read your work.
Yeah, you can find my work on the Miami Herald, columnist for the Miami Herald. We have a podcast called Dolphins in Depth, where you can find all the Dolphins coverage, just like you do here, Big Sarge, for the Locked On Network. And then you can find me on social media spaces, X and Instagram at Omar Kelly. Now, Facebook is only for the family. Facebook, family and friends. I don't take Facebook. Everybody don't go. Facebook is for family and friends. But on X, you know how I do it, Big Sarge.
Yeah,
keep it real and raw.
Exactly. And maybe next time we'll get into what y'all been putting into Jonnu Smith's Gatorade bottle. Thanks so much.
Pro Bowl season. Jonnu Smith is definitely on that pace. So it'll be interesting to see how y'all defend him, because last I checked, y'all got some good linebackers though. Y'all got some good inside linebackers.
Missing Aziz, but getting Christian Harris back, so it's going to be interesting, especially watching the way that he went from no catches to 3 catches and winning the game for them last week against the Jets. So, Omar, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
All right, see you on Sunday.
All right, thanks, now. Hey, Locked On Texans fans. I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete. Well, if that is the case, I've got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fan in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift for your loved ones, friends, and coworkers. It is kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. Patented twisted and agitator that breaks up powders, but is silent when you shake it instead of their annoying ball. It is third-party tested and will hold ice for 30 plus hours. It is easily customizable. All you got to do is send them your logo and check out their custom shop to customize your favorite bottle. The turnaround time on custom bottles is 3 to 5 business days. Created by and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shaker has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with their workout bottles, and this is the gift that you've been looking for. Go to iceshakers.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% on your next order. Welcome back, Battle Red Nation. Thank you for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL now with 2 shows every day. First, the Madman. Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so it was an honor. It was a pleasure to be able to talk with Omar Kelly, who is the columnist for the Miami Herald. A lot of experience with watching and covering the Miami Dolphins. But now it's time to get back to some real Texans talk, right? I appreciate it, Omar. Don't get me wrong. But the Texas fans want to know what is one of the major concerns, and I have it for you. One of the major concerns for the Houston Texans against the Miami Dolphins, and we've talked about this repeatedly, with the fact that the speed of the Miami Dolphins offense is what normally kills defenses. It drives defensive coordinators crazy. It makes them almost borderline insane, trying to figure out how to stop the wide receivers and the running back. And now Jonnu Smith, the tight end, who is on his way to having one of his best years of his career with the Miami Dolphins. And so now you look at it. If you start from the tight end position, you have to worry about that. Then you have to worry about Waddle and Hill. And then you got to worry about the running back position at A-Chain. So knowing that you have to worry about all of that, this is where it's going to be very, very important that safeties coach Stephen Adegoji is on point with making sure that safeties Jimmy Ward, who will be fluctuating back and forth from the safety position to the corner slot position, Jimmy Ward, rookie Kalen Bullock, and Eric Murray, they have to all be on the same page. And what I mean by they all have to be on the same page when they're in the game together, too many times this season, we've watched them take a misstep. We've seen them go the wrong way and get beat with explosive plays. And if you allow that to happen on Sunday against Miami, they will constantly look for the big play. They constantly look for ways to get those wide receivers open in space so they can get the explosive plays. Look, that Dolphins offense really only wants to stay on the field for like 3 to 5 plays at most, and then they're off. Hey, defense, your turn. And if the safeties for the Houston Texans are not aware, one of the things that head coach DeMeco Ryans said on Monday during his press conference is our eye discipline has to be on point. Our eyes have to be on point. When I was in the locker room talking to some of the defensive backs, they said, if you're not aware of where their weapons are at all time, don't take your eyes off of them. Don't take your eyes off of them, not one time. Safety Jimmy Ward said, I have to make sure that I read and recognize where everybody is so that we won't get beat by the big plays. That's something that Miami has lived on for a very long time. They love the explosive plays. That's why they have so many weapons that has the type of speed that they have. So you can't have Eric Murray not knowing where the weapons for Miami is. You can't have Kalen Bullock not watching over the top. There's no possible way that this week that these safeties should get beat over the top. Now that's going to also start with the front seven. If Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter can bring that type of pressure that we know that they can bring, and we've talked about this before, if they could bring that type of pressure off of the ends and get to Tua early, then they could prevent some of those downfield plays. They can prevent some of those explosive plays. But if they don't, this game could get real ugly real quick. We're in week 15. By week 15, Kalen Bullock, I understand it's still your rookie season, but you're going to have to, and it's crazy because we know Kalen Bullock is a ball hawk. We know the amount, I think he has 4 interceptions on the season. We know the amount of aggressiveness that he plays with when the ball is in the air and how he's always pretty much in the vicinity where the ball is thrown. But this week, you just have to make sure that you keep everything in front of you. Make sure that nothing gets behind you. Be deep. You are the last line of defense. You've got to be deeper than whatever wide receiver is running these routes. And if that means you have to give up a lot that's in front of you, then that's exactly what the safeties should do. Hey, look, I understand. You want to be aggressive. I understand. You want to come down here. I understand you see. I'm not telling you not to be aggressive. I'm not telling the safeties not to be aggressive. But what I'm saying is let the cornerbacks do their job. Let the linebackers do their job. If they need the help, then be their assistant. But don't get caught flat-footed, especially against these wide receivers who will run right by you. Don't get caught looking in the backfield and not noticing where the rest of the Miami Dolphins personnel is on the field. It's going to be boring. I understand. I know. It's going to be boring. Nobody wants to play that type of football. You grew up being aggressive. The one thing that got you to the league was being aggressive. One thing that got you to the league was taking chances. Well, if you're going to be aggressive and you're going to take those chances, you have to make sure that you are 100% sure that what you're trying to do is going to manifest itself into a play that you've already seen or that you know that you can make. Because sometimes you see it in your mind, it develops in your mind, and then by the time your body gets there, it's something totally different. We've watched too many times this season where safety play has ended up with big plays for the offense. We've watched too many times where safeties have been out of position for the Houston Texans, and they get beat on an explosive play. Now, listen. I understand Eric Murray was not supposed to be a starter this season. I understand. He's 9 seasons into the league. Kind of figured out, hey, he's best at a reserve role. But he has been put into a situation where he has to play a lot of minutes. And by having to play a lot of minutes, he's learning on the fly. This week, just, hey, be boring. Kalen Bullock, we understand you're a rookie. You're a very good rookie. You're going to get a lot of recognition, and I'm pretty sure that offensive coordinators make sure that they know where you are on the field. Be boring. Be boring. If you don't have no tackles, that's good. If a safety doesn't have any tackles, that's good. That means the front seven is doing their job. If you have limited pass breakups, that's cool. That means the front seven is doing their job. And they are keeping you, hey, all right, I ain't got nothing to do today. If a safety doesn't have anything to do, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I understand you want to make plays. I understand you want to come down here. Don't get caught inching up towards the line, because Tua is one of those quarterbacks who, and I know I keep saying Tua. I'm talking about Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. He's one of those quarterbacks that his release is so quick that your one misstep is him getting the ball out of his hand. He could see your body twitch one way, and he already knows that his wide receiver has beaten you. And when you look at, listen, we know what Derek Stingley is going to do on one side. Kamari Lassiter is a rookie, so there's going to be some times where some of these veteran wide receivers from the Dolphins are going to beat him. There's going to be some moves that's going to beat him, and that's when you're going to need that safety help. Now, with that being said, keep everything in front of you. Keep everything in front of you. If they're dinking and dunking, let them dink and dunk. Because sometimes the dinking and the dunking is going to turn into other things for the defense. Somebody's going to get a hand up, tip the ball. Cool, that's an interception. Somebody's going to knock a pass down. Somebody's going to get to Tua. Keep the dinking and dunking, and then make them beat you on dinking and dunking. And don't get caught trying to come down here to be a part of the dinking and the dunking, because once you get down in that area where they're killing you in the flats, where they're killing you across the middle, taking 5 to 7 yards, they're setting you up. They're setting up safeties to come down. I've watched the Miami Dolphins do it too many times with this offense that they have. And you also got to remember, you're trying to look at everything, but sometimes your primary responsibility is going to be Jonnu Smith, the tight end, who won the game for the Miami Dolphins against the New York Jets last Sunday. He didn't have any catches. In overtime, he had 3, including the game-winning touchdown. They find ways to get him involved. So you also got to play your responsibility as well. That's why it's going to be so important that Jimmy Ward fluctuates back and forth from the nickel corner position to the safety position. If I'm Matt Burke, defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, I am putting Miles Bryant into the game and saying, we need you. We need you. I know you know how to play this position. You wouldn't be on this team if you didn't. We need you. We need you to step up. So all I'm saying is, if the Houston Texans safety plays disciplined football, I think that the Houston Texans come out with a victory against the Miami Dolphins. Thank you for joining the Locked On Texans podcast. Make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with a Z at the end. Until next time, John, hand over heart. I'm out.